welcome to Hack the Planet. I am your host, Jedi83, and if you watched the last episode, we installed a VirtualBox and we installed Linux. A lot of hacker tools and penetration testing tools are written for Linux. So this is a must-learn OS for anyone who wants to be a hacker, a pen tester, an ethical hacker, or just work in IT. Sorry, my cat just decided to climb up the monitor. Hi. Go on. Okay, where was I? So today we are going to go ahead and introduce the Linux file system. I'm just going to go over the root of the file system, just some of the highlights. So here we have our Kali install. And this is going to be similar pretty much to the Linux version. And I'm going to start by opening a terminal, sudo mc, that's Midnight Commander, and then we're going to go cd/. Now we'll cover Linux commands next episode, so this is the root of our file system. This is the top of the file system. Now on a Windows computer, this would be the equivalent to your C drive. Now, one of the big differences you'll see here is, whereas Windows, each drive has its own separate file system, each with a unique identifier, C drive, D drive, whatever. Linux has one file system, and any other drives that you add to the system, or thumb drives, or network shares that you mounted, get mounted as a folder inside of this, and I'll show you where that is in a minute. Okay, so here we are at the root of our file system, which if you look here at the top corner, right where my mouse is, you just see a slash. That is the symbol that that Linux uses to represent its the root of the file system. If you do change directory and then just put a slash in, you're changing directly to the top of the file system. If you see a path to a file that starts with a slash, know that that is an absolute path from the beginning of the file system. If it doesn't have a slash, it's relative to where you currently are located. So what are all of these files here? Alright. So let's just start with this first one called bin. Selecting the right place here. Bin. This folder right here. Inside of the bin folder is essential binaries for the user. These are very low-level binaries like move, copy, list. And this is going to be just mostly the binaries that if a user is working at the command line, they're going to be interacting with. Now, if you come down here, you'll see another folder called sbin. Sbin is system binaries, the essential system binaries. Now, next one we're going to cover is the etc, etc folder. And this is configuration files. If we come in here and we scroll down past all the folders down to here, mostly what we're going to have are text files that act as configuration files for other programs. I'm just picking a couple here at random. And in the folders, well, it's the same thing, except like this folder Apache 2, this means that there is an Apache web server installed, and here's all of its configuration files. So if you're looking for configuration settings, check the etc folder. Now the next one is going to be home. Every user that's created in the system has a home directory, and that's where they're all located. So if we come in here, you'll see a single subfolder called Kali, because the only user on the system is called Kali. If we went ahead and added add user Bob, and we'll just set a generic password for Bob. Before I go past this, you'll see here it even created a folder called home/Bob, and it copied the files from etc/skele. That's the skeleton folder. Whenever you create a new new user and their home directory gets created, the template that you use to create that is the skele folder. So we're going to go ahead and save our changes. Now if we come back here, you see we now have a new user called Bob, and all these folders, all the files inside of there are from the skeleton folder. Kali's got a few more things here, because it's an account that's actually been signed into and used. Alright, so that's home. Really, usually you find all the good stuff here in the home folder. Alright, next one we're going to go down to is var. This is variable data. Really useful to check, to remember in here is where the log files are stored. Also, you're going to see mail, which should be where the system will store emails. Spool is going to handle a few different types of spoolers, including your print spoolers, which I think shows up in here. Temp is a temporary files folder. www/var/www is one of the classic places to store the HTML for websites, for web servers installed. Alright, so let's go back to the root folder. Come on. There we go. Okay. Now, the user folder is user applications and utilities. Whereas bin was essential binaries for the system, this is kind of everything else the user will have access to. Temp. The temp again is going to be another. This is temporary files. The temp folders are wiped at system reboots. Now let's jump back up here to the top of the list to boot. This is everything necessary to boot the system. This is your bootloader. This is your kernel files. Everything the system needs to actually start up is right here. Grub is actually the bootloader. Yeah. Okay. Let's see where we boot. So dev. Okay. So dev. Every file in here is not a file. It is a device, or a place a device could be connected to. Linux uses the philosophy that every device should be treated as a file, so here they all are. If we come down here, TTY, this is all terminals. If we come down, let's see if I can find yeah. Alright, I don't see it immediately, I'm not going to go look. But that's what everything here represents. It represents a device in the system. Okay. One thing to note, one device in here is this one here. /dev/null. Null is useful if you have a job that puts out, the system views it as a drive that it can write to. But whatever gets written to it just goes away. Really useful so that if you have a file that generates, or a program running that generates a lot of output, but you don't care about the output, you could just pipe the output to null. You don't have to see it on the screen, you don't have to save it to a file, it just gets dumped down the black hole. proc. Okay, so proc, P-R-O-C. Each one of these folders and files represents a process that's running on the system. This is all virtual file system for the system and for processes. Sys, S-Y-S, there it is interface things for the kernel. And finally, media and mount. Now, I said that earlier that unlike in Windows, where each storage device would have its own file system separate from all the others, and like in Windows, each would be assigned their own root, which would be identified by letter. Instead, Linux went with the model that every device is a folder or a file. So if we go into the mount folder, is there anything immediate? No. Okay. Nothing in those folders. Let's check. Okay, never mind. Can't do it. Okay. That's all right. So, if you had other hard drives in the system, they would appear as folders inside of MNT mount. Whereas the media folder does the same thing for removable media. So if you put a thumb drive in, a folder would show up in media for that thumb drive or external hard drive. And if you went into the folder, you would see the contents of that drive. Media is generally removable, mount is generally fixed storage. Now, if you're mounting something at the command line yourself, you can specify wherever you want to put it. Personally, I put everything in mount, because back when I started Linux, media folder was not a thing. Everything went into mount. Now, let's go ahead and take a look. So that's a quick overview of all the stuff you're going to find in the root of the file system. Let's go into Home, and then we're going to go into Kali, and I'll show you this one. Okay, so first thing you'll notice is a lot of files down here that start with a period as their first character. Actually, it's all of these. A period as the very first character means it is a hidden file or folder. Like here at the top, we do actually have some hidden folders. Desktop, anything that's inside the desktop folder appears here on our desktop. For example, we create a document right there. We need to give it a name. And we come back into our browser here, go there. You see, there's the file I just created in the desktop folder because it's on the desktop. If I remove it here, it's gone. Okay. Documents is just going to be a folder for a user document folder. It's one of the ones that a lot of Linuxes will have a quick, like here, I click here to open this little menu. You got all these shortcuts to common places in my home folder. That's what documents, downloads, music, pictures, public, template. So all those folders, that's where these all go to. So there you go. That's a quick intro to the Linux file system. Well, there's a bunch of resources. I wrote an article on the Hack the Planet website that kind of goes over this. That's what I'm reading off the other monitor. Excuse me. And if you want to learn more, there's plenty of resources online. I would also strongly recommend that you also check out the Linux file permissions. I'm not going to go over it. It's a topic that's annoying enough for me. I don't want to deal with it. But it is something, as a hacker, we do need to know. And I'm going to leave that up to you to learn on your own. There's tons of great resources on the internet for it. So there you go. Other than that, I think that's all I really want to talk about the Linux file system today. Um, yeah, I think that's going to be about it. So, thank you for joining me. I will be doing another video soon. If you're watching on Twitch, I might even do it tonight. Um, an introduction to Linux command line commands. Um, if you're on YouTube, you'll probably see that in the next few days. But thank you for joining me. As always, hack the planet and check out my website, hack-the-planet.cc. And until next time, have a great day.